Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are tackling a story that is, well, it's a massive collision point in the history of modern sports.
It really is. It's a narrative that forces you to hold two completely contradictory ideas in your head at the exact same time.
We are talking about Ray Rice. And, depending on who you are, maybe just depending on how old you are, that name triggers one of two very, very different images.
Oh, absolutely. For one group, he's the ultimate underdog hero.
Yeah, the kid who basically single-handedly saved Rutgers football, the fantasy football god, and of course the guy who converted a 4th and 29 that physically shouldn't have been possible.
And then for the other group, and this is probably the broader cultural memory now, he is the man in the elevator. He is the face of a domestic violence incident in 2014 that didn't just end a career. I mean, it fundamentally rewrote the NFL's rule book and completely changed how we as a society talk about athletes and violence.
Exactly. And that's our mission for this deep dive. We want to bridge those two images. We aren't here to just, read off his Wikipedia page. We really want to understand the arc.
The full projector.
The full trajectory. How do you go from being one of the most beloved, productive, charitable players in the entire league? I mean, a guy who literally transformed a university program to becoming a pariah whose career just vanishes overnight at age 27.
It's an extreme path. Usually when a star falls, it's a slow decline. It's injuries, it's age, diminishing returns. This was a cliff.
Sheer cliff.
One day you are a franchise icon. The next day they are recalling your jersey from the pro shop. It's just gone. And we've got a massive stack of sources today. Biographical deep dives, game tape analysis, court records from 2014, and a lot of reports on his life after football.
So let's map this out for you. We're going to start at the very beginning, the tragedy in New Rochelle that really fueled his drive. Then we have to spend some real time on the Rutgers years.
Oh, we have to.
I just don't think people fully appreciate how bad that program was before he showed up.
You can't understand the hero worship that came later without understanding the miracle he pulled off in college.
Then we'll get into the NFL, the technical side of it, his leverage, his insane versatility, and of course the hey diddle diddle play. Then we have to go deep into the 2014 incident.
The video, the league's mishandling of it, the legal fallout, all of it.
All of it. And finally, we'll look at the aftermath, the redemption tour, the silence from the league, and what his legacy actually looks like today.
It's a heavy one for sure, but it's a necessary deep dive if you want to understand the modern NFL.
All right, let's get into it. Section 1, Origins. So Ray Rice was born in New Rochelle, New York in 1987. And when you start digging into the sources on his childhood, it isn't just a story of, hardship. It's profound loss.
It really is. You often hear that cliche, right? The athlete using sports to escape their circumstances. But for Rice, the trauma was incredibly specific, and it happened so early.
How early were we talking?
His father, Calvin Reed, was killed in a drive-by shooting when Ray was just 1 year old.
Boom. Wow.
1 year old. So he has no memory of him, no organic memory whatsoever. He's growing up with this void where a father figure is supposed to be right from the very start.
A phantom limb, basically.
Yeah.
Navigating the world with something missing that he never even had.
Precisely. And tragically, that wasn't the only major loss. When Ray was 10, which is such a formative age, you're right on the cusp of becoming a teenager, his cousin, Myshawn Rice-Nichols, was killed by a drunk driver.
So you have two violent, completely senseless deaths, taking away these male role models before he's even hit puberty. I mean, how does a kid even begin to process that?
Well, from all the biographical accounts, he processed it by funneling absolutely everything into competition, into sports.
The football field.
The football field became the one place where the world actually made sense. It's controlled chaos, right? You can't control a stray bullet, you can't control a drunk driver, but you can control whether or not that linebacker is going to take you down.
And he took that control with him to New Rochelle High School. He played for a coach named Lou DiRienzo. Now, I was looking at these high school stats you pulled, and I honestly had to read them twice. They look like video game numbers.
They're almost comical. They really are. He was the running back for the Huguenots, which, by the way, is a fantastic team name.
Great name. Let's zoom in on one specific day, October 24, 2004. This is his senior year. Just paint the picture for us. What happened?
Okay, so this was a game that has become, local folklore in New Rochelle. Rice didn't just have a good game. He didn't just have a great game. He carried the football 42 times.
Wait, hold on. Pause there. 42 carries in a single high school game.
42.
That sounds, I mean, that's almost negligent, isn't it? That is an insane amount of physical punishment for a 17-year-old kid.
It's an immense workload. I mean, in the modern NFL, a workhorse back might get 20, maybe 25 carries on a heavy day. 42 is just attrition warfare.
What does that tell you, though?
It tells you two things. One, his coach's absolute total reliance on him. He was the offense. And two, Rice's just freakish durability. He wasn't a big guy, but he was built like a little fire hydrant, a tank.
Okay, so what did he do with those 42 carries?
He gained 462 yards.
462 yards.
On the ground in one game.
That's a season for some high school players. I mean, that's half a season for a good college player.
Exactly. He averaged over 10 yards every single time he touched the ball. And that's over a huge sample size of 42 touches. That is statistically absurd.
It means that every time the quarterback handed him the ball, on average, the team was guaranteed a first down. You don't just beat the other team with that, you completely demoralize them.
And this wasn't just a fluke game in a mediocre season. The year before, as a junior in 2003, he led them to a state title.
Right. They beat Webster Schroeder, I think it was, 32-6 at the Carrier Dome.
He was the engine, the absolute engine of that entire program. And we should probably touch on the Turkey Bowl, too, because if you're from that area of New York, you know about this.
The huge Iona-New Rochelle rivalry.
It's an institution. It had been played every single Thanksgiving since 1949. Rice played in the very last one, back in his sophomore season in 2002. They won 53-6. He was kind of part of the closing chapter of that history.
But his senior year, despite that monster 462-yard game, it actually ended on a bit of a sour note, didn't it?
It did. In the state championship game in 2004, they lost a heartbreaker. It was a shootout, 41-35, to a team called Christian Brothers Academy.
And who was on that other team? Because that's a fascinating little piece of trivia.
It is. The star quarterback for Christian Brothers was a guy named Greg Paulus.
No way. The Duke point guard, Greg Paulus.
The very same. Before he was throwing alley-oops to J.J. Redick at Duke, or, playing quarterback at Syracuse later on, he was the guy who beat Ray Rice in a high school football championship. It just shows you the level of elite talent that was concentrated in that one high school game.
So Rice leaves New Rochelle a legend. He's got the tragic backstory that fuels his engine. He's got the state records. And now he has to pick a college. And this is where the story takes a really interesting turn. Because he doesn't go to, Ohio State or Michigan. He chooses Rutgers.
Which, to a modern listener, you hear Rutgers, you think Big Ten, you think, okay, that's a normal Power 5 choice. But we have to contextualize what Rutgers football was in the early 2000s.
It is not a football factory.
Not a factory. It's being incredibly polite. Rutgers was, and I'm not exaggerating here, it was essentially a graveyard for football ambition.
Wow.
They're technically the birthplace of college football. They played in the first ever game back in 1869, but by 2005, they had been completely irrelevant for decades. They were the doormat of the Big East Conference.
I have a note here that just blows my mind. In the 136-year history of their football program up to that point, they had been to 2 bowl games total.
Two bowl games in a century and a half of football. That is the definition of historical futility. So when Greg Schiano, the head coach at the time, was recruiting Ray Rice, he wasn't selling him on a trophy case.
Right.
He was selling him on a construction project. He was saying, come here and be the cornerstone, be the foundation of everything we're trying to build.
And Rice gets to campus in 2005 as a true freshman. So does he redshirt? Does he sit on the bench and learn the system?
Not for a second. He starts immediately. And the impact was seismic. It was immediate. In his freshman year, Rutgers had their first winning season in 13 years. They went to the Insight Bowl.
Just his presence on the field completely flipped the script for them.
He rushed for 1,120 yards as a true freshman. He had a 217-yard game against UConn. He proved instantly that his size, and he's only 5'8", wasn't a liability. It was an asset.
But 2006... that's the year, isn't it? That's the year that everything changed for Rutgers football.
That is the Pandemonium and Piscataway season. This is when Rutgers became a national brand, a national story. The team won 11 games, which tied a school record. They finished the season ranked number 12 in the entire country.
For a team that used to celebrate getting 3 wins in a season, finishing 12th in the nation it's unimaginable.
And Rice was the reason. He was the engine. He rushed for 1,794 yards. He shattered the school's single-season rushing record, a record that had stood since 1973. He scored 20 touchdowns. He was just an absolute machine.
I want to talk about the dynamic in that backfield, though, Because it wasn't just a solo act, and I feel like this really speaks to that character narrative that was built around Rice at the time. Let's talk about Brian Leonard.
This is a crucial part of the story. Brian Leonard was the fullback. But before Rice showed up, Leonard was the guy. He was the star. He was the one on the posters, the one leaping over linebackers. He was so good, he could have easily gone to the NFL after the 2005 season.
He had legitimate NFL talent, no question.
He did, but he chose to stay for his senior year in 2006. And he didn't stay to be the star. He stayed to block for Ray Rice.
Wow.
He voluntarily took a lesser role, carried the ball less, sacrificed his own stats, his own glory, to clear the way for this younger, smaller running back.
That says a ton about Brian Leonard, obviously, but it also says something really powerful about Rice, doesn't it?
Right.
That a senior and established star was willing to basically become a battering ram for him.
It implies that Rice was a teammate worth sacrificing for. It created this halo around him. Rice wasn't just a talented player. He was seen as the humble leader of this brotherhood. That 2006 team felt special because of that chemistry. I mean, Rice finished 7th in Heisman voting that year, but he'd be the first one to tell you that he owed half of those yards to Brian Leonard's lead blocking.
And he didn't slow down after that. 2007, his junior year, he kept it going.
If anything, he sped up. He was named the Big East Offensive Player of the Week 3 separate times, and in all 3 of those games, he rushed for over 200 yards.
200 yards. 3 times.
201 against North Carolina, 202 against South Florida, and a career-high 225 against Pitt. He was unplayable at the college level.
And then comes the swan song. The final game. The International Bowl in 2008.
January 5, 2008. They played up in Toronto against Ball State. And this was basically his goodbye letter to college football. He went out and ran for a school record 280 yards and 4 touchdowns.
280 yards in his last game. It's like he was trying to see if the scoreboard had a limit.
He had a 90-yard touchdown run in that game. It was the longest of his entire career. He essentially just looked around at the collegiate level and said, okay, I've conquered this. There is nothing left for me to do here. And he declared for the NFL draft right after.
So he leaves Rutgers as a deity. I mean, he put the entire school on the football map. He has the production. He has the tape. But now he's heading to the NFL Combine. And the scouts start taking out their measuring tapes. And suddenly being 5'8" isn't just a quirky detail. It's a problem.
The NFL is obsessed with prototypes. They are. They want the 6'1", 220-pound slasher with long strides. Rice measured in at 5'8", 206 pounds. And despite everything he did in college, every record he broke, he slid out of the first round.
He fell all the way to the second round, pick 55, where he was scooped up by the Baltimore Ravens.
Which, in hindsight, was the absolute steal of that draft. But we need to unpack why he was so successful at that size. Because the big critique from the scouts was that he was too small to see the holes, to see over his offensive line.
Right. How can you see where you're supposed to run when your linemen are all 6'5" and basically blocking your view of the entire defense?
And the irony is that was his superpower. In football, we always talk about leverage. The low man wins. Well, when a linebacker who is 6'3" tries to tackle a 5'8" Ray Rice, that linebacker has to bend at the waist, drop his hips, and completely fold his body to get down to Rice's level.
It's biomechanically awkward for the defender.
Incredibly awkward. It takes a split second longer, and it compromises the linebacker's balance. Meanwhile, Rice is staying compact and powerful, and visually, he would just disappear. He'd hide behind a massive offensive tackle like Jonathan Ogden, and the defense would literally lose track of him. Then, boom, he'd burst out of a gap at full speed. By the time the linebacker even saw him, it was way too late.
He weaponized his height. He turned a perceived negative into a tactical advantage.
Exactly, and the Ravens figured this out very, very quickly. He signed a 4-year deal, and by his second season, 2009, he had already taken the starting job away from a very good running back in Willis McGahee.
And this brings us to the core of what made him so dominant in the NFL, his versatility. If you just look at Ray Rice as a runner, you are missing like half the story.
At least half. He was a dual threat back before that term was really, in vogue for running backs.
So let's look at 2011. That was his statistical masterpiece, right?
Yeah, it was his peak. He rushed for 1,364 yards, a great number, second best in the league. But, and this is the key, he also caught 76 passes for 704 more yards.
700 receiving yards. That's a solid season for a starting wide receiver, let alone a running back.
Exactly. You add it all up, and he led the entire NFL in yards from scrimmage with 2,068. That means he was responsible for more forward progress, more total offense than any other single skill player in the league. He was the entire offense. You couldn't take him off the field on third down because he was your best short yardage receiver.
And the Ravens knew exactly what they had. In 2012, they paid him. Big contract. 5 years, $35 million. He was a franchise cornerstone.
He was the face of the offense. Joe Flacco was the quarterback, sure, but Ray Rice was the engine. He was the guy that made everything go.
Let's talk highlights. Because stats are great, but legacy is built on moments. And Rice had some moments that are still played on highlight reels to this day.
The first one that really announced his arrival on the big stage was in the playoffs, January 2010. It was the wild card round, and they were playing the New England Patriots in Foxborough.
Which is a notoriously tough place to play, especially in the postseason.
Very tough. And it was the very first offensive play of the game. First snap, Rice takes the handoff, finds a little seam on the left side, and he just goes 83 yards for a touchdown.
Just silenced the entire stadium on the first play.
You could hear a pin drop. It was the second longest run in NFL postseason history at that time. It completely set the tone for what ended up being a blowout victory for the Ravens.
But that's not the play. The play that really defines him, the one that seems to defy the laws of physics, is Hey Diddle Diddle.
Oh, man, the Hey Diddle Diddle play. November 25, 2012. Ravens versus the San Diego Chargers. I feel like every single Ravens fan remembers exactly where they were for this.
You have to set the scene for us to really understand the impossibility of what happened.
Okay, so the Ravens are losing by 3 points. There is under 2 minutes left on the clock. It is 4th down and 29 yards to go.
4th and 29. That is, for all intents and purposes, a death sentence in football. The probability of converting that is, what, less than 1%? It's basically zero.
It's zero. Usually you just punt the ball away or you throw a Hail Mary deep down the field and you just pray for a pass interference penalty. That's your only real shot. So Joe Flacco drops back to pass. He's under immediate pressure. He looks deep, but everyone is covered. So he does the only thing he can do to avoid a sack. He dumps the ball off to Ray Rice on a little check down pass.
Can we just explain check down for a second? Because that's a key detail.
For sure. A check down is the safety valve. It's the last resort. It's a short pass to a running back who's, near the line of scrimmage, and it's almost never designed to gain big yardage. In a 4th and 29 situation, throwing a check down is basically seen as giving up. You throw it 2 yards, he gets tackled immediately, game over.
So Flacco throws his passive desperation to Rice, who catches the ball, where he's still like 28 yards away from the first down marker.
Even worse, he catches it basically right at the line of scrimmage, and he has 3 Chargers defenders immediately closing in on him. The play is over.
And then the magic happens.
He takes the short pass, and he makes the first guy miss with this incredible little juke. Then he cuts back across the entire field. He gets a phenomenal block from Anquan Bolden, who just sells out. Rice then splits 2 more defenders, dives forward, and the referees spot the ball at exactly 29 yards.
It's the kind of play that just makes you believe in destiny or something. They brought the chains out to measure it, and he got the first down by the absolute nose of the football.
It kept the drive alive. They went on to kick a field goal to tie the game, and they won it in overtime. It was called the GMC Never Say Never moment of the week, but honestly, it was the play of the year. It just showcased everything about him, his vision, his incredible balance, his sheer refusal to go down.
And of course, that 2012 season ended in the best way possible.
Super Bowl XLVII, the Ravens go all the way and defeat the San Francisco 49ers. Ray Rice gets his ring. He had 20 carries in that game. He was a champion.
So let's just freeze the frame right there. It is February 2013. Ray Rice is a Super Bowl champion. He's a 3-time Pro Bowler. He is absolutely beloved in the city of Baltimore. In fact, in 2012, he was literally voted the city's most charitable person for all his work with anti-bullying campaigns and homeless aid.
He is at the absolute apex of his career. He has the money, he has a championship ring, he has the stats, and he has this impeccable reputation as a good guy.
And almost exactly 1 year later, that entire edifice just crumbles to dust.
And that brings us to Section 4, the incident and the fall.
The date is February 15, 2014. The location.
Yeah.
Atlantic City, New Jersey. Specifically, the Revel Casino.
Ray Rice and his then fiancée, Janay Palmer, she is now his wife, were there for the weekend, and by all reports, there was heavy drinking involved throughout the night. They got into a very heated, very public argument at a table in the casino.
And the argument continued as they moved towards an elevator.
Right. And we have to be really specific about the details here because the timeline of how the information was released is absolutely critical to understanding the public reaction and the league's reaction.
Okay.
Inside that elevator, Things escalated dramatically. They were shouting obscenities at each other. Reports later stated that Palmer appeared to spit in Rice's face, and Rice responded with an act of extreme violence.
Now, initially, the public did not know exactly what happened inside that elevator. The doors closed, and that was it.
Correct. 4 days later, on February 19th, the gossip site TMZ released a video. But this was the hallway video. This was the first piece of evidence. It showed the elevator doors opening and Ray Rice dragging an unconscious Janay Palmer out of the elevator and into the hallway.
I remember seeing that video, and it was deeply disturbing just on its own. Seeing a man drag an unconscious woman across the floor like she was a piece of luggage, it raised immediate, massive alarms.
It did. Rice was arrested and eventually indicted by a grand jury for third-degree aggravated assault. Now, that is a serious felony charge. It carries a possible jail sentence of 3 to 5 years.
But the NFL's reaction, this is where the story becomes just as much an indictment of the league itself.
We have to remember the context of 2014. The NFL's domestic violence policy it was vague, it was inconsistent, and frankly, it was extremely lenient. It was just treated as a personal conduct issue, often lumped in with things like bar fights or DUIs.
So on July 25, 2014, after months of deliberation, the NFL announces Ray Rice's punishment.
They suspended him for 2 games.
2 games. For an incident where a woman was rendered unconscious and he was indicted on a felony assault charge.
The backlash was immediate and it was fierce.
Right.
Sports writers, women's advocacy groups, fans, everyone was outraged. It felt like a complete slap on the wrist. But the NFL and Commissioner Roger Goodell, they defended it. They claimed they had followed precedent. They claimed Rice had taken responsibility for his actions.
And they claimed they hadn't seen any evidence that contradicted Rice's own account of what happened, which he described as a mutual scuffle.
A mutual scuffle. That was the key phrase. And then September 8, 2014 happened.
The second video.
TMZ obtained the footage from inside the elevator with audio.
And this changed everything.
This changed the world. The video showed the argument, but then it showed Ray Rice winding up and delivering a vicious left hook directly to Janay Palmer's face. It was brutal. She hit her head on the handrail as she fell and was instantly knocked unconscious.
The difference between reading the words, "he struck her," in a police report and seeing the punch.
Yeah.
It was just so visceral.
It's the power of visual evidence. We had known the facts, right? We knew she was unconscious. We knew he did it. But seeing the violence with your own eyes stripped away any ability to minimize it or explain it away. You couldn't call it a scuffle anymore. It was a brutal assault, plain and simple.
And the reaction this time was instantaneous.
The Baltimore Ravens terminated his contract and released him that very same day, within hours. And the NFL suspended him indefinitely.
So in the span of, what, a morning? He went from being the starting running back who was scheduled to return in week 3 to being unemployed and banned from the league.
And the public relations fallout was nuclear. The Ravens did something I had never seen before. They recalled Ray Rice jerseys from their pro shops. They offered an exchange program where fans could literally trade in their old Rice jerseys for any other players. They were actively scrubbing him from the franchise's visual history.
We need to unpack the legal side of this for a minute because it gets complicated. Despite the felony charge, he never actually went to jail, did he?
No, he didn't. The criminal charges were ultimately dropped because Rice agreed to enter a court-supervised counseling program. It's called pre-trial intervention. It's a fairly standard legal path for first-time offenders in New Jersey. If you complete the counseling program and you stay out of trouble for a year, the charges are dismissed from your record. And he did that successfully.
But he also fought the NFL suspension. And this is a nuanced point that I think a lot of people forget.
He appealed the indefinite suspension. His legal team argued double jeopardy, not in the constitutional sense, but in the sense of labor law. Their argument was simple. You already punished him. You gave him a 2-game suspension. You cannot punish him again for the exact same incident just because a video leaked that made you look bad.
And the core of that argument was that Rice had been completely honest with the NFL from the very beginning.
Exactly. Testimony from the appeal hearing showed that Rice had told Roger Goodell and the league officials, in person, explicitly, that he had punched her and knocked her out. So when the tape came out, the NFL couldn't claim they were shocked by the facts, only by the public seeing the optics. The arbitrator, a former federal judge, agreed with Rice. She ruled that the NFL had acted arbitrarily and had punished him twice for the same offense.
So, in November of 2014, Rice wins his appeal. The indefinite suspension is overturned. He is reinstated. He is free to sign with any team in the league.
And on top of that, he settled a wrongful termination lawsuit with the Ravens for about $3.5 million in back pay. So by early 2015, legally and administratively, Ray Rice was back. He was 28 years old, he was healthy, he was only a year removed from being a Pro Bowl level player.
But he never played another down in the NFL.
And this brings us to Section 5, the aftermath, what you could call the silent ban.
Why didn't a single team sign him? We see teams overlook serious character issues for talent all the time in the NFL. Why was Ray Rice different?
It was a cold, hard calculation of public relations versus production, and the PR was just too toxic. Yes, teams signed troubled players, but Rice was a running back, a position with a very short shelf life, and he was approaching age 30. His stats in 2013, the year right before the suspension, had already started to dip. He averaged only 3.1 yards per carry that season.
So he was a declining asset who brought a three-ring media circus with him.
Exactly. If he were still in his prime, rushing for 2,000 yards from scrimmage, maybe a team takes that heat. Maybe an owner is willing to stand at a podium and defend it. But for an aging running back, the toxicity of that elevator video was just too high. No owner wanted to be the one to answer the question, why did you sign the guy from the elevator video?
He tried really hard to get back in, though. This wasn't a case of him just giving up.
Not at all. He stayed in peak physical shape for years. In 2016, there was a report that he offered to donate his entire salary to domestic violence charities if a team would just give him a chance to play.
His whole salary?
His entire salary. He wasn't doing it for the money at that point. He was doing it because he needed to redeem his identity as a football player. It's who he was.
But the phone never rang.
It didn't. In 2018, he finally officially announced that his football career was over.
So he had to pivot. And this is where the story gets really complex again. Because he didn't just hide. He didn't disappear and live off his money. He actually leaned into the ugliest part of his story.
He became an advocate. He started traveling the country, speaking to high school and college football teams. Major programs like Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State. And his message wasn't, I was treated unfairly. His message was, I am the cautionary tale. Look at me. Don't do what I did.
What specifically was he telling these young athletes?
He would tell them that he was a hero in his city, a Super Bowl champ, a guy everyone thought was a good person, and that it all evaporated in 30 seconds of a horrible decision fueled by alcohol and ego. He owned it completely. He even mirrored the language Roger Goodell eventually used about the incident, admitting that he didn't get it right. He spoke about toxic masculinity, about the need to walk away from conflict, about what real strength is.
And it's worth noting, as we mentioned earlier, that this charitable side of him wasn't some PR stunt that was invented after the assault. He had a long track record of community work before 2014.
That's the dichotomy we just keep coming back to in this story. He was the same guy who was giving out Christmas presents to low-income families in Baltimore in 2016, just like he was the guy fighting cyberbullying in 2012. He is a complex human being who did a lot of good in his community and then committed a horrific, inexcusable act of violence. Both things are true.
And that leads us to the final thought, right? The synthesis of this entire deep dive. Ray Rice's legacy is just. It's permanently split down the middle.
It is. You cannot tell the story of the 2012 Baltimore Ravens Super Bowl victory without him. He was essential. But you also cannot tell the history of the NFL's domestic violence policy without him. He is the reason the league was shamed into instituting a strict 6-game baseline suspension for first-time domestic violence offenses. He is the reason the league started taking investigations more seriously rather than just relying on whatever was in the police report.
He changed the game, just not in the way he ever intended.
Precisely. His downfall forced a change that was long overdue.
So here is the question that we really want to leave you with today. It's a question about redemption. And it's not an easy one. Ray Rice has spent the last decade trying to atone for his actions. He has spoken to thousands of young men. He has stayed married to Janay, and they have raised a family together. He seems to have done everything right since that night.
And yet, whenever his name is mentioned, the first thing that pops into our heads, the first image we see, is the grainy footage from inside that elevator.
Right. So the question is, can an athlete, or really can anyone, ever truly outrun a moment like that? When the evidence of your worst act is so visual, so brutal, and so permanent, does all the good work you do after ever actually balance the scale? Or is the video the only legacy that will ever truly matter?
It's a question that doesn't have a clean answer. but it's the question that I'm sure Ray Rice lives with every single day.
That's it for this deep dive into the rise, the fall, and the complicated aftermath of Ray Rice. Thanks for exploring all the gray areas with us.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you in the next one.